Welcome everyone as we learn the amazing limud of Chok Yisrael for Parshas Pkudei Yom Rishon, Day 1. Eile Pkudei HaMishkan. These are the accounts of the Mishkan. Mishkan Ha'edus, the Mishkan that gave testimony that Hashem forgave us for the sin of the Egel. Asher Pukad, which whose accounting was done al pi Moshe, according to the instructions of Moshe, avodas haLeviyim, the work of the Leviyim, biyad Isamar ben Aaron HaKohen, under the direction of Isamar, the son of Aaron HaKohen. Iloin minyane mashkana de sadusa di ismaniu al memra de Moshe pulchan Levoi biyadadi Yisama bar Aaron Kahana. So Rashi tells us, Eile Pkudei, but Parsha Zu, in this Parsha, Nimnu Kol Mishkalei Nidvas HaMishkan, in this Parsha was counted all the weights of the donations to the Mishkan, Lekesef, silver, Ulezav, and gold, Ulechoshes, and copper, V'nimnu Kol Kelav, and its itemized all its utensils, l'kol avodah, for all of its service. Mishkan, why does it say the word Mishkan twice? Shnei pa'amim remez l'mikdash, this is a hint to the sorry fact of two temples, shenismashkein, that was taken out of that was taken as collateral, b'shnei churbanon, during the two destructions of the temple, the Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni, al Avanei Sein Shel Yisrael, because of the sins of Yisrael. Mishkan Ha'edus, a Mishkan of testimony. What did it testify to? Edus Yisrael. It's a testimony to Yisrael. She'vito lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Ma'aseh Egel, that Hashem forgave them for the sin of the golden calf, because you see that He started to live with them, because he devolved his shechina in their midst. Avodas haLeviyim, the work of the Leviyim. Pkudei HaMishkan, the account of the Mishkan, v'kelim and its utensils. It is the labor, the work, HaMesura LeLeviyim b'midbar, which was handed over to the Leviyim in the desert. Laseis, to carry, ulahorid ulahakim, and to bring it down when they traveled and to set it back up. Ish l'masaya mufkad alav, each Levi for the carrying that he was appointed to. K'moshenema b'Parshas Naso, as it's itemized in Parshas Naso in Chumash Bamidbar. V'yadi Samar, in the hands of the Samar, the son of Cain, who are Yapoked Alehem, he was the superintendent over them. Limso l'kol beisav, to give to each family avodah she'olav, their task, their duty. Ubetzal ben Uri ben Chur, and Betzal the son of Uri, the son of Chur, lamata Yehuda, to the tribe of Yehuda. Also, he did as kol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe. He did all that Hashem instructed Moshe. Now, Rashi is going to point out, it should have said, he did all which Moshe told him. But we will see that even though it was Moshe that told him, he seemed to know what Hashem told Moshe, as Rashi will point out. It says the Targum Betzal bar Uri bar Chur l'shifted Yehuda avad yas kol pakad adino yas Moshe. Says Rashi, Betzal ben Uri os es kol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe. He did all that Hashem commanded Moshe. Asher tziva oisai Moshe. It doesn't say which Moshe instructed him. Ein ksiv kan. Doesn't say that. Kol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe. All which Hashem told Moshe. Afilu dvarim sheloi amalei rabbi, even things that he didn't hear from Moshe, his schema daitei l'masha amalei Moshe misinai. His mind matched what Hashem told Moshe. For example, ki Moshe tziva leBetzalel la'asei tchila kelim v'ach kach mishkan. Moshe told Betzalel, make the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash, and only then make the Mishkan. However, Betzalel said to Moshe, that's usually not what people do. They make the house and then they do the furniture. Amalei B'Tzalel Miniga Eilam La'asei Tchila Bayis, to make the house first, V'achakach Meisim Kelim B'Soich, and then you get the furniture. Amalei, so Moshe Rabbeinu said, you're right. Kach Shamati Mipi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what I heard, like you're saying, that first the Mishkan and then the Kelim. Amalei Moshe said in astonishment, your name is B'Tzalel. It's good because B'Tzel Kel, you must have been in the shadow of God when God was telling me this. B'Tzel Kel Hayisa. Ki bevade kach tzivalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what kach tzivalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like you said, that's what Hashem told me. V'chein asa, and so he did. HaMishkan Tchila, first the Mishkan, v'achach asa kelim, and only then he did the Mizbachos, etc. Kol hazav osi l'malacha, all the gold that was made for the work, b'chol meleches hakodesh, all the gold for all the work in the holy, vayhi zahav ha'tenufa, and the counting of the gold that was waived in donation, teisha ve'esrim kikar, 29 talents of gold, u'shva meyus u'shloishim shekel, and 730 shekel b'shekel hakodesh. Kol David is David Levitica b'chol vidas kutsha v'hav dahav aramusa esrim shak korin u'shva ma'o u'slosin silan b'silei kutsha. Now Rashi is going to tell us that we should know that a kikar is 3,000 shkalim, and this is going to be computed. Rashi is going to tell us, let's see it inside, a kikar, a talent of gold, is shishim mana. Now, even though usually a talent is 60 mana, but the mana shel kodesh, the mana used in the holy, was double. Kafel haya. So therefore, the talent, instead of being shishim, is 120. Hari Akikar Meyav Esir Mana is 120. Now each mana was 25 shkalim. So 120 times 25 is 3,000. Again, 120 times 25, 25 times 100 is 1,500. And, 25 times 100 is 2,500. And then 20 times, again, 100 times 25 is 2,500, and 20 times 25 is 500, so it's a total of 3,000. So, V'amana esim v'chamisha slam, the money is 25 slam, which is 25 shkalim. Hari kikar shel kodesh, the kikar of kodesh was shloishes alafim shkalim, 3,000. And Rashi says that's why later we're going to give an amount of the machzis hashekel, and we're going to say that there was a total of 100 kikar and 1,700 and 1,775 shkalim. Now, if it wasn't 3,000, but it was only 60 mana, so then a kikar would be 1,500 shkalim. And then the pasuk wouldn't say that the remainder was 1,775, because then that would be another talent, another kikar, and 250. So we see that it's double, and therefore one kikar is 3,000 shkalim, as we'll see in the next pasuk. The kesef Pkudei Ada, the silver of the census of the congregation, remember they took a machzis shekel, was ma'as kikar, was 100 talents of silver, ve'elef u'shva meis v'chamisha b'shivim shekel b'shekel hakodesh. It was 100 talents and 1,775. Uchsaf minyonik knishta ma'okikrin v'alef u'shva ma'ov v'shavim v'chamesh silin kisilei kutsha. Now, how is that computed? So the pasuk tells us, Beka la gulgolis. A beka is a half a shekel. So remember, we took a machzah shekel per skull. So beka la gulgolis, that's the weight. Machzis ha-shekel, which is half a shekel, b'shekel ha-kodesh. L'kola over ala pekudim, for all those that passed for a census. Meben esim shana v'mala, from the age of 20 and on. L'sheish meyes elef, 600,000. Ushloishes alafim, and 3,000. V'chamesh meyes v'chamishin. 600,000. 3,550. Tikla legulgalta, pal gesila besile kutsha, l'chol da'avra al minyana, mebar esrin shnin ul'ela, l'shis ma'o slosa alfin, v'chamish ma'o v'chamishin. Now, so the amount was 600,000, 3,000, and 550. So 600,000 people gave a half a shekel. So 600,000 people gave a half a shekel. So that means that it's 300,000 whole shkolim. Now 300,000 whole shkolim, since 3,000 is a kikar, so that's 100 of them. So 600,000 is 100 talents. So now you have left 3,550. Now that's 3,550 halves. So how much is that whole? That's half of 3,550. Half of 3,550 is half of 3,550. Well, no. So half of 3,000 is 1,500, and half of 550, half of 3,000 is 1,500, and half of 550 is
275.
Half of 550 is 275. Correct. So 1,500 plus 275 is 1,700. Is 1,750, 1,775. So that's the amount, right? What's the amount that we said? Ma'as kikar, 100 talents. So that's for the 6,000. Ve'elef u'shva meyos ve'chamisha ve'shivim, and 1,775, because 1,775 is half of 3,550, correct? Now, and that's what Rashi is going to say over here. Tikla legulgalta pal gesila b'sili kutchel l'chol da'aver al b'yadav mebar asin shnin u'leil l'shis ma'o s'los alfim chamesh ma'o v'chamishin. Says Rashi, Beka hu shem mishkel, it's the name of the weight, shel matzah shekel, of a matzah shekel. L'sheish meyos elef, for the 600,000. Kacha Yisrael. Yisrael at that time was, from the age of 20 to 60, was 603,550. And v'kach olam minyanim achashokam hamishkan meseirim b'midbar. And that was also their census when they set up the Mishkan. V'af atam benigvas hamishkan kachaya. So also now, when they gave the donations, it was the same amount. Uminyan chetzay ashkolim shel sheish me'es elef, and the minion of half shkolim of 600,000. So 600,000 is half, is 300,000 whole. And 300,000 whole is, since there's 3,000 to a kicker, oilam as kicker. Kol echad shel shloishes alafim shkolim. Each one of 3,000 shkolim. As Rashi explains, Ketzad. Sheish meyes elef chatzon, 600,000 halves, equal 300,000 holes. Hari hein shloish meyes elef shleimim. Hari mas kicker. Since 300,000 every kikar is 3,000, so 300,000 is 100 kikar. V'ashloishim alafim ut chamesh beis v'chamishin, and 3,550 halves, oilen elef shva meis v'chamishin v'shim shkolim, equals 1,775 holes. So that's why the amount is 100 talents plus a remainder of 1,775 shkolim. And now, in Malachim it says, Vayas Chiram es Kiyaris. Remember, Chiram was the man that Shlomo HaMelech brought in, who was an expert coppersmith. Vayas Chiram es Kiyaris. He made the urns to hold the ash. This is called later on, are called hasiros, is another name for it. This is to receive the ash from the mizbeach. V'esayoim, and the shovels. V'esamizrakos, and the basins. V'yechal Chiram, and Chiram finished lasois es kol hamalacha, to do all the work. Asher asa l'melech Shlomo beis Hashem, which he did for King Shlomo in the house of Hashem. Amudim Shnaim, if we remember, he constructed the huge copper pillars called Yochan and Boyaz at the entrance to the ante-chamber of the Beis HaMikdash. V'guloi sakoi seres asher al roisho amudim. And remember, we said there was a globe made of a half, which was like a bowl, shtayim, v'asvachais, and the matching half, which was like an inverted bowl that sat on top of that to make a globe, shtayim, two, l'chasois eshtei gulois hakoisaris, to complete the upright bowl on the top of the pillars, asher al roisho amudim, which was on top of the pillars. And we said around the globe was pomegranates, were figures of pomegranates. So it's a reminder, arba meis, and the strings of pomegranate, 400, l'shtei asvachos, that encircled the top of the globe, shnei turim reminder, 2 rows of pomegranates, lasvacha echas, 2 rows for each of these upper parts of the globe, l'chasos shtei gulais hakoisaris, the inverted half that covered the upright half bowl, asher al pitnei amudim, which was at the face, at the top of the pillars. Vesamachainas, and remember the wagons that we learned in detail, that was the base of the urns that held the water for washing their hands and for washing the animals, Vesamachainas Eser, and those mobile platforms 10, Vesakiyoris Asara, and the 10 urns, Alamachainas, which were on these mobile platforms, Vesayom Ho'echad, and the huge bath of Shlomo, which was held 150 mikvahs, Vesaboker, and the cattle, the figures of cattle, Shneim Aser, 12, that braced the bath from underneath, Tachas Hayam, underneath the bath. Vesasirais, this was the what we mentioned earlier, this was the kiyarais, Vesasirais, the pots, Vesayoim, and the shovels, Vesamizrakais, and the basins. Mizrakais were the basins to catch the blood. Veskala kelim ha'ele, on all of these, or eskala kelim ha'oyel, all the utensils that accompanied the Beis HaMikdash, asher asa Chiram lamelech Shlomo, that Chiram fashioned for King Shlomo, Beis Hashem, for the temple of Hashem, nechoshes mimorat, using bright copper. And now we learn from Mishlei, Goyla side, one who reveals people's secrets, Haylech Rachel, is a talebearer. Ulepaises Svasav, and one who flatters with his mouth, one who flatters and tries to seduce you, Loisisarev, you shouldn't mingle with such a person. Mikal Lovav Ima, a person who curses his father and mother, Yidach Neiroi, his light will flicker out, be'eshen choshech, when he is in darkness. In other words, he will dim out. Nachla mevoheles, a person who rushes to take first inheritance, and he chaps his portion, Barishayna, he rushes it to take it first. V'achrisa lo yisavarach. At the end, he will not find blessing. Rashi says this is reminiscent of Ruvain, Gad, and Chatzi Sheva Menashe, that right away chapped the Yerusha first on the Ever Ayardain, on the Transjordan, and they were exiled, the 10 tribes, they were exiled first from all the other tribes. Al Toimer Ashal Mara. When somebody does bad to you, don't say, I'll repay evil, I'll get him back. Instead, Kavil Hashem, hope to Hashem that he should straighten things out. The Yoshalach, and Hashem will save you. Don't take matters into your own hand. Don't pay evil with evil. Toyavas Hashem, it's an abomination of Hashem. We already learned this sentiment once. Toyavas Hashem, it's an abomination of the Lord, Evan v'Evan. If a person has two weights, one that he buys with and one that he sells with, in other words, he doesn't have uniform weights, or moiznei mirma, and scales of deceit, loitayv. That's a very not good thing. Me Hashem mitzadei gaver. We have to realize that it's determined by Hashem, the footsteps of man. V'adam ma yaven darkei. And what does a man know of his way? There's a saying, a mensch tracht and Gott lacht. A person thinks and Hashem laughs. Rabbi's machshavos b'lev ish. Person has many thoughts, but atzas Hashem yisakim. So we can only pray to Hashem that He should lead us in the right way, and we should try to do the right thing, because b'derech she'adam roitza lelechas, in the way that a person wants to go, malichan oisai, he is led. Now we have a very long perek in Masechtas Demai. Now Arizal has us experiencing every day of Chok an entirely different experience. The first day of the week is, of course, from Seder Zram, so we're going to learn Demai with the help of Hashem. I made a bracha already. Hamakabel Soda, meaning Yisrael, min oivik kechavim umin akusi. If you accepted a sharecropper arrangement from a Yid, or from a guy, or from a Kusi. The Kusim, they converted. There's a question about the sincerity of their conversion. But if you accept the sharecropping arrangement, so as long as there's no barter going on, Yechalek Lifneim, you could take your part and give them their part without having to take tithes from their part. HaChoicher Sodom Yisrael, but if, let's say, you have a chakiris, a tenant farmer with a Jew, that means that the tenant farmer, let's say that Dr. Block agrees to be a tenant farmer for a Yid, and that means that he works the field and he promises the Yid to pay him 50 bushels at the end of the year. And that's different than a sharecropper, because it's not a percentage. Even if it was a bum crop, he still has to give the Yid 50 bushels. So the din is that Toirein v'naisin, when he gives him his 50 bushels, he has to take off the truma from the 50 bushels and give it to him. He doesn't have to take, however, any other maisrus, but he has to take off the truma before he gives it to him. Now, this is because truma is supposed to be separated from the geirin. when it's on the threshing floor. So therefore, since he has to give it to him after it's removed from the threshing floor, so the Rabbanim put the obligation of Truma on the Chaker, on the one who's doing the Chakiras. The Maisris, he doesn't have to do. The Maisris, he doesn't have to separate. And the reason is because if he would have to do the Maisris, then he might not take the job. And we want the land to be cultivated. HaChoker Sodom Yisrael, I said this, okay. Torah v'nosim loy. Am Rabbi Yehuda, a Masai, bizman shenosim loy me'oisa sada u'me'oisa min. But that's only if he's giving him the 50 bushels from this field and from the species that he's working on. Avalim nosim loy mistei acheres, but if he gives him from another field, or from a different species, then we didn't allow this leniency, and he has to not only take off truma, but he has to take off the maisris as well. If let's say the maiser rishon and the maiser sheni or the maiser ani, and only then give it to him. Now a choker sodom in a ovid kechavim, if he is a tenant farmer for a guy. So the din is that before he can give the guy his share, he has to take off ma'aser. Ma'aser v'noisen loy. Now, why is that? Why does he give the 50 bushels to the guy? So the Tanakama holds that this was knas, because they don't want that people should rent from a guy. They want people to buy it from the guy, and they want Mipnei Yishuv Haaretz. They want to rescue the land of Eretz Yisrael from a guy. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Afa mekadbel stay avois of min ha'ovid kechavim." You know, there was a time that goyim would snatch the land from Yidden. So here, the person is renting his ancestral home, his ancestral field. So Rabbi Yehuda says, "Afa mekabel stay avoisav min ha'ovid kechavim," even if he's using the ancestral field of his ancestors from a guy. So here too, even though it originally belonged to his family and it was stolen by Goyim, still we make him ma'asav and Eisenlight, we still make him take off tithes in order to be mazaris him to buy it back. Now what happens if the tenant farmer or the sharecropper is a Kayin or a Levi? Does he have to give the owner of the field the truma, or could he keep the truma for himself? So let's say he promised 50 bushels. Does he have to give him the 50 bushels and give him the truma of that also, or could he say, look, since I'm a kayin and I'm working the field, I'll take that portion for myself? So the Mishnah says, kayin v'levi shekiblu sodom Yisrael, a kayin and a Levi, the Levi it would be nageya, pertinent to the Meiser, there is a tenant farmer for a Yisrael, kishem shecholkin b'chulin, just like if he's a sharecropper, he gives him, let's say, 25% or 50% or 33% of the chulin, kacholkin b'truma, he has to give the landowner also the truma, and the landowner will decide which kayin he gives it to. Rabbi Eliezer says no. It's understood that when he went into this arrangement, that he would be able to keep the truma of the portion that he gives to the landowner. even if he's a Levi, the Maisa goes to him, or a Kohen, the Truma goes to him. Shalmanas came bo, because that was the arrangement that is assumed. Now, Yisrael shekibel mikoyen u'melevi. What about if it's the other way around? The sharecropper, the tenant cropper, the tenant farmer is the Yisrael, and the landowner is the Kohen and the Levi. So Hamaisus Labolim, the Tanakama says that all the tithes of the field, if he's a Levi, or all the truma of the field, goes to the landowner. Rabbi Shmuel says, "Hakartoni shekibel sodom Yerushalmi." Now here, this is applicable to Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. So let's say a sharecropper or a tenant farmer in the first, second, fourth, fifth year of the Shemitah cycle, where Meiser Sheni is eaten in Yerushalayim. So Hakartani, a person that lives outside of Yerushalayim, that is a sharecropper or a tenant farmer, the landowner is Yerushalmi, Meiser Sheni shel Yerushalayim. All of the Meiser Sheni goes to the Yerushalmi, because the Kartani would have to schlep it to Yerushalayim. Chacham say, so what? No, the sharecropper takes his portion of the Meiser Sheni. He could go up and eat in Yerushalayim. Chacham Maimim, Yachal hu Kartani la'alo yisulach lo b'Yerushalayim, and eat in Yerushalayim. Now, the next Mishnah is interesting. We know that if a person is an Amaretz, so he's suspected of not taking Meisers. Now, Hamakabel Zeisim L'Shemen, when one is a tenant farmer on olives to produce oil, right? They're pressing it into oil, and then they divide the oil. Just like they divide the oil, whatever percentage they made up of the chulin, so they also divide the truma. The landowner gets his truma to give to whatever kohen he wants, and the sharecropper gets his truma. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, Yisrael shekibel mikoyen u'melevi, a Yisrael that is a tenant farmer or a sharecropper for a kohen and a Levi, zeisim l'shemen l'machtzis sochar, the Rabbi Yehuda Yisrael shekibel mikoyen u'melevi zeisim l'shemen l'machtzis sochar, that he accepts to convert the olives into oil to split the profit. Hamaisus l'balim, all the truma, if the owner is a kohen, or all the maisvus, if the owner is a Levi, goes to the homeowner, because that's what's assumed. Now, by Shammai Oimrim, lo yimkar adam es zeisav ela l'chaver. Beis Shammai says you shouldn't sell your olives only to someone who is careful to take off trumas and meisus. Also a chaver is a person who's careful to keep things betara. A chaver is careful with tumah betara. Now there's a problem that even though these olives are now chulin, but you're not allowed to generate tumah to chulin, because inside the chulin is potential truma, which you're not allowed to bring tumah to. So Beis Shammai says, Lo yimkar adam es zeisav ela l'chaver. You can't sell olives only to somebody who's going to be careful in tumah v'tara. Beis Hillel says, you know what? That's not your problem. The olives are not susceptible to tumah until they're moistened, until you decide to make it into oil and it gets moistened. Oil is one of the liquids that renders something susceptible. But the Amoritz might eat the olives the way they are, and then they would never be tamei. So therefore, since there's a chance, you don't have to worry, and you could sell the olives before they're moistened to a person as long as he's you know that he takes off Tumas and Maisus. However, Utsnue Beis Hillel, the modest, pious people of Beis Hillel were machmer like Beis Shammai, Hayanoigin Kedivrei Beis Shammai, and they wouldn't sell olives even to people that are not careful with Tumah V'Tara. Okay, now, Shnayim Shebotzru Es Karmeim L'Soich Gas Echas. Here we have Reuven and Shimon. They vintaged their vineyard into one press. Now, here's the problem. Reuven was careful with Trumas and Maisus, and Shimon was not. Shimon was an Amoritz. Now, their wine is now all mixed up. Now, in every grape, this is interesting, in every grape, Reuven owns half of the grape, and Shimon owns half of the grape. So let's say it produced 1,000 grapes. So in every grape, Reuven owns half of it, and Shimon owns half of it. At the end, they split it 500 and 500. Now, what happens really is that Reuven takes 500, which is 250 of his, and 250 of Shimon's. So Shimon says, you know what? I have 250 of yours. I'll barter it, and I'll take it, and I'll give you the 250 of mine. That's what happens. The problem is that you're not allowed to sell to an Amoritz. So not only does Reuven have to take off Maisa from his 500, but he also has to take off for the 250 that he gave Shimon as barter. So therefore, he's going to have to take off Truma and Maisas from 3/4 of the yield. And that's what the Mishnah tells us. Hama'aser ma'aser es shaloi. He has to take off Maisa from all that's his, and v'chelkai, another half of what Shimon has, b'kol makom shu. So he has to take off 3/4. Shnayim shekiblu sada barisis, two people that got a sada as sharecropping, oy sheyorshu, or they inherited it, oy shenishtatfu, or they were partners. So when he inherits it, or if he's a partner, Yachalu Laimerla, he could tell him, Tel atachitim shibamakim plaini, you take the wheat on the south side, v'ani chitin shibamakim plaini, and I'll take the wheat on the north side. Now there's no barter, because there each one is saying that's my portion from the beginning. Ata yayin shibamakim plaini, v'ani yayin shibamakim plaini. And then he only has to take off Mises from his half. But he can't tell him because each one is Yairish, an equal amount of chitin and an equal amount of barley. So if he's saying you take all the barley and I'll take all the wheat, then there's a barter going on. So then again he would have to also take off from half of what Shimon has, and then it would be again a 3/4 business. Talat yayin v'ani Shimon, that he can't say. Now here's an interesting thing. Chaver v'Amoritz sheyoshu es aviyam Amoritz, a chaver and Amoritz that inherits their father the Amoritz. Yachalu laimala, he could tell him Talat chitim shebamakim plaini v'ani chitim shebamakim plaini. You take the chitim in the west, and I'll take the chitim in the east. Because then that means we use Breira retroactive clarification that that's his from the beginning, and there's no barter. I'll take the wine on the east, and you take the wine on the west. Because again, since each one has a half in each thing, if they're doing wheat and barley, then that's barter. Or he can't say, Tol ata halach, you take the moist stuff that was already moistened to be mekabel tuma, v'ani etel es yavesh, because that's considered like two species. Now the next Mishnah moves on to a new subject, Avodah Zarah. Now, in order to understand this Mishnah, we have to know, wow, it's already 40 minutes. Whoa, how am I going to do this? Okay. It is what it is. We'll finish it when we finish it. Ger v'oivei kechavim. The din is that a guy, if let's say Tony became a ger, matisyo, and now his father, Ike, the guy, dies. So really, he doesn't have Yerusha at all. Because Gershon is guy could cut and shenoila dummy. A convert is like a newborn babe. However, midrabanan we say he gets the Yerusha because we're afraid that otherwise he might return back to becoming a guy. But it's important to know that biblically he doesn't inherit. So ger v'oivei kechavim, a ger, a convert, and a guy sheyorshu es aviyam, oivei kechavim. Yachalu laimalai, he could say, Tol ata avodah zarah v'ani mois. You take the idols, and I'll take the money. Isn't that bartering? And bartering, you're not allowed to barter with avodah zarah. Since he really doesn't inherit it, so therefore he could say, I'm taking the money, you take the avodah zarah. Ata yayin, you take the wine, even though it's yayin nesach, v'ani peris, and I the fruit. But v'im shebolu, she'll say, yeah, but once the idolatry comes into his possession, then he can't trade with it anymore. Then he can't have any benefit from it. Lo yidbak biyodcha mu'uma min ha'chayrim, it's also ma'ana, and then it's too late. Then it's awesome. Now the Mishnah tells us, Hamoicher Peres b'Surya. Now Surya is an area that was annexed by David HaMelech. It has a quasi status of kedusha, because really kibush yachid lo yishmei kedusha. The conquering of an individual is not considered holy. So the area of Surya, the area of Aram Tzova and Aram Narayim, so he sells fruit. V'amar, and the Amaorit says, Mishal Eretz Yisrael hein. Now normally, stuff in Aram Tzova was imported from the diaspora. So you wouldn't need to tithe it. But if he tells him it was from Eretz Yisrael, Chayiv La'aser, he has to take off Meiser. But if he tells him, I got it from Eretz Yisrael, but I took tithes, and then he can believe him. Neman, Sha'pesha Asa, the mouth that asks it, Hu'apesha Eter. Since he didn't have to say that he bought it from Eretz Yisrael, so he said he bought it from Eretz Yisrael, so we can believe him that he tithed it. If he says Mishali Hain, it's mine. No, it's from Aram Tzova, not from the diaspora. Chayiv La'aser. Musarin Hain, again, if he says it's tithes, Neman, Sha'pesha Asur Apesha Iter. Unless we know that he has a field. If we know that he has a field, so then we can't assume that it's from diaspora. Maybe you do a sheyeshli sada achas b'surya, then chayiv las, you have to take off meiser. Amo oret she'ama lechaver kachli agudis yorek. Here a chaver is going shopping to the market. Amo oretz meets him and says, "You're buying vegetables for $10. Here's a 10. Get me as well." Or kachli gluskin echad, or a nice cake of bread. So lekeach stam, he could buy 2 cakes, or 2 vegetables, or potter. And he doesn't have to take tithes from it before he gives it to him, because he's buying his, and the others belongs to the Amoritz. He's not giving anything from him that he should have to tithe it from before. However, if when he goes into the market, he says, this is for Sruli the Amaretz, and this is mine, and this is for Sruli Amaretz, and then it gets mixed up, then since he might be giving him his, he has to tithe it before, Chayiv La'aser. And the truth of the matter is, even if the Amaretz told him, buy 100 for me, and he bought one for himself, he has to tithe one of the 100 that he gives him, because maybe the one of the 100 might be his. So he has to tithe two, the one that he bought for himself, and one of the 100 that he gives to him. And now we learn the Gemara in Brachas. Gemara in Brachas tells us, why did the earlier generation have miracles? And us, why did they have open miracles and we don't? If because of learning, we learn more than them. In the years of Rabbi Yehuda, they only learned to say their Nezikin, Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basar, Sanhedrin, Vanakam Asnin, and Shita Sidra, and we learned Hashim and Mayid and Zraim. And when Rabbi Yehuda got up to the Mishnayos in Uksin, a woman that pickles vegetables in the pot, and the handles, the leaves become soft, and therefore you can't hold the vegetable with it anymore, so it's not a yad. The olives that are pickled with their leaves, and they become soft, so they're not a yad anymore, Tyron. Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, Havayis Rav Shmuel Kachazinacha. The complications of Rav and Shmuel we find in this Mishnah. While Vanan Kamasnina books in Tleisim Mesifta, we have 13 academies well versed in Uksin. Yet, V'ilu Rabbi Yehuda, the ancients, when there was a lack of rain, if he removed one shoe to suffer Asi Mitra, it rained. V'anan kametzarin nafshin, we fast, and we cry out, and it doesn't rain. So Amalei, Abaya told Rav Papa, the ancients had Mesiris Nefesh for Hashem. We don't have the same Mesiris Nefesh. He saw a kusis. Now, really, she was a gaita, but he thought that she was a yid. She was wearing an immodest red dress in the shuk. Svar de Bas Yisrael. He thought that she was a Jewess. Come carry. He tore it off her. It ended up that she was a goya. But you see the Mesiris Nefesh, Shaimur Ba'arba Ma'azuz, they assessed that he caused her embarrassment of 400 zuz. Amala Mashmach, he said to her, what's your name? Amala Masan. Masan also means 200. Amala Masan, 200. 200 is Arba Ma'azuz Shafi. It's worth 200 zuz. And also he was saying that if I would have been Masan, I would have been deliberate. If I would have waited, it wouldn't have cost me 200 zuz. Rav Gidel Rav Gidel would sit by the gate of the tefillah, and he would tell the women, Amalu haki tefillah, he would say, in this way you should be taivel, in this way you should be taivel. He would teach them also that this is a chatzitza and this is a chatzitza. Amalei Rabbanan, like him, is stopping Mama Yetzahara. Aren't you worried about impure thoughts? You see these women going to bathe. Amalahu damyan ba'apoy kikaku chivare. In other words, he was older already, and they looked like him, like white geese. He's not nichshal in sinful thoughts. The Gemara now tells us, we just had this in the Daf Yomi, Rabbi Yochanan Avaragel Ka'azav Yosef Ashari de Tefillah. Rabbi Yechon would sit by the gates of the mikveh. Amar Kisolkin B'nais Yisrael v'asim netfilah, so that when they come out, mistaklim be, they should look at me before they mate with their husbands. V'na'avalu zara d'shfirei kavasi, they should have descendants that are beautiful like me. The Gemara over there in Bava Metzia said, and also wise like me. Amalei Rabbanan, the Rabbanan said, like a mistafing marmein abisha, aren't you worried about the evil eye? Amalahu anam azar the Yosef kasin, I come from the seed of Yosef. The leisholta ba'ein abisha, that the evil eye holds no sway on. Dichsiv ben poros Yosef. Yosef is a fruitful son. Ben poros ali ayin, he's charming to the eye. Vam Rebbe Avo al tikre ali ayin, to the eye. Ela ole ayin. He is above the eye. He is impervious to the evil eye. Rabbi Yosef Chanina Amar Mehacha v'yidgu l'rayv b'kerav ha'aretz, they will multiply in abundance in the midst of the land. V'yidgu is a lashon dogim. Ma dogim shebiyam, fish in the sea. Mayim mechasim aleim, water covers them. Ein ayin sheletas b'hem, and the ayin does not hold sway over them. Af zara shel Yosef, the seed of Yosef, ein ayin hara sheletas b'hem, the even isle doesn't have sway over them. V'iba yisema, ayin shalai rotzis alazin memasha eina shalai. Yosef's eye, who didn't want to benefit from the wife of Potiphar that wasn't his, ein ayin hara sheletas, by the evil eye holds no sway over his descendants. Says the Zohar, talking about why normally when we make an accounting that's bad. We learned ein bracha shayra ela b'davar asami min ha'ayin. Blessing only is found by something that's hidden from the eye, and it's not found by something that's measured or weighed or counted. So how come over here we make an accounting? So says the Zohar, Eila Pkudei HaMishkan, this is the account of the Mishkan, Mishkan HaEdus Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe, which was done by the direction of Moshe. Rabbi Yesa Amar, Keven de Avdu Kol Chakimoi Yos Mishkana, now that all the wise people made the Mishkan, Itztrach Lemeder Chushbana, they had to now again make an accounting Mikol Inan Avidon Dis Avidube, from all the work that they did. My time, huh? Begin the Kol Chushban V'Chushban, every accounting. Karav is Avid Chushbana, when they make the accounting, Hochi Iskayim Ahu Avida, the action is established, V'iskayim Ba'asrei, and is made proper in its place. The Bir HaZohar explains that when they made an accounting, the Bnei Yisrael were joyous that they gave all these donations. And that generosity that was reminded at the time of the accounting put holiness in that which was done in the Mishkan. V'Yisrael Kulu, Kimad Isru, and all of Yisrael, like they wanted, B'mad Nedivu B'Kadmesa, what they donated in the beginning, Hachinami Isru Ba'u Chishbana. They also showed their willingness and their happiness when they made the accounting. Ukidain, and with this, renewed generosity of spirit, ukidain iskayim kol avida bahu reusa. Therefore, it was permanently affixed with this desire. Valdo itzrichacha chushbana, and that's why we make an accounting here. Begin the behai iskayim avida. This is what makes it settled, and that's why it doesn't say ve'ela over here. It says ela. Ela is a miyat, only these. Ela ksiv, like ksiv ve'ela, but ela pekudei. Ela do iu chushbana de pasal kol chushbana dalma. This cheshbon accounting is different and is an exclusion to all other accountings, because all other accountings are no good. Ein abracha mitzuya b'davar has that's measured or weighed or counted. V'dois kaim yatem mikulu, but this renders permanent more than everything else. The Bahai is kaim mashkina, with an accounting here, the mashkin is more settled. V'loi ba'achra, this doesn't work anywhere else. Now, Pasuk v'amar, the Pasuk says in Yeshaya, v'hoya emunas itecha, the faithfulness of your time, chais in Yeshua's, the strength of salvation, chokhmah v'das, wisdom and understanding, yiras Hashem, the fear of Hashem, hiyoitzara, is its storage. Now, haikra ukmuha chavraya. The Gemara in Shabbos discusses that this pasuk refers to the 6 sedarim in Shas. Emunah is 1, Itecha is 2, Chaisin is 3, Yeshua is 4, Chochmah is 5, Das is 6. That refers to the 6 sedarim of Shas. Aval ha'teneinon, but here Rav Shimon Bar Yochai is going to tell us something else. Kol bar nashtis asik b'araisa, any person who occupies himself in Torah, b'ay alma, in this world, and this is really consistent with the Agadita Gemara we learned in the Daf tonight, about those that were lo baruch b'Torah tchila. Kol bar nashtis asik b'araisa b'ay alma, any human that occupies himself in Torah in this world, v'zachi l'mikpa itinla, and merits to make fixed times, itzrich be'emunah. He has to infuse it with faith in Hashem. Ramila mourned those that learn Torah, ve'eina likim kol muzimaisa, and God is nowhere near their thoughts. He has to have faith in Hashem. The ru'usa delay, that his desire is yiskavan l'kutcha berichu, is to have thoughts with Hashem. Yiskavan l'shem shemayim, he should have thoughts for the sake of heaven. Begin the emuna lahachi yiskavan, because the word, it says in the pasuk, v'hoya emuna itecha, that your itecha, your kavata itim latayri, you're making times, should be infused with emuna. The Bir Azayir explains that emuna is made up of amein and vav hey. Amein is b'gematria yud kei vav kei and aleph daled nun yud. Amein is 91, yud kei vav kei is 26, and aleph daled nun yud is 65. 26 plus 65 is 91. So amein is Yud Kei Vav Kei Al Dan Nu Yud, and Vav Hey is part of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So Emuna represents the synthesis of Kutcha Berichu, the Shechina, the Kutcha Berichu. Chaysein Yeshuas, the power of salvation. So that's La'achla La Rachma B'din. That's to synthesize mercy and din, because Chaysein, which is strength, is din, and Yeshua's salvation is mercy. Chokhmah v'das, now this is extremely esoteric, it's beyond my pay grade, but you know, we always quote the Arizal, that even things that are our mortal body doesn't understand, but our neshama gets food from it. So Chokhmah v'das, the train Elon Shroin Dalda. We know that Chokhmah is from the hidden fountain of Bina. Bina is hidden, and Chokhmah is from the hidden fountain of Bina, which then devolves upon Das. Dot Tamir Veganas, the Chokhmah, which is secret and hidden away, that comes from Bina, La Ashra Dal Da, to then devolve on Das. And then Yiras Hashem hi oitzara, the fear of Hashem is its storage. Oitzara dechol ilain. So the Bir HaZayir explains that Yiras Hashem refers to the Bechina of Malchus, and begin the high Yiras Hashem noket kol ilan nakalan. Yiras Hashem takes in all of these streams. It takes in all of the Ze'er Anpin, all of the spheres. V'ihi is avidas oitzel kulahu, and it is the storage, the silo for all of it. And from it comes out, it is the conduit to give bracha from the world. V'kad nafka minei kol inan gnizin kulu. And when it comes out and exudes from it all of these secrets, apiklon b'chushbana. It comes out with a cheshbon. Minalan, how do we know that it comes out with a cheshbon? Because that's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. Dechsiv einayich bereichos b'cheshbon. Your eyes are like pools that give out streams with a cheshbon. B'cheshbon vadi abed. V'apik inun bereichos maim, streams of water. V'ashkei la'apaka kulu b'chushbana. And it irrigates everything with a cheshbon. V'alda ikre emuna. This is called emuna. Ubekula ikre emuna. The whole thing is emuna. V'ha'akimna, as we've established. Uma ihacha. It's tarach la'achzah mehem nusa. And if when the Bechina of Malchus gives out its blessings, it has to be done with faithfulness, l'shar milei da'alma, then everything else in the world, al achas kama v'kama, it has to be accompanied with the emunah of the Rabbeinu Shalom. V'alda kutchiberichu ava odalu l'chol Yisrael. This is what Hashem informed all Yisrael. Roza demem nusa dilhu, the secret of his faith. B'chol ma'ad avdu, what we do. V'chulei itmar, and this is something that we've established. Shekol ma'asecha yiyu l'shem shamayim. And now, much more down to earth, the Musa tells us to beware of lashon hara, talking about other people. Lashon hara, Amar Rabbi Seinu Zichron Livracha. Our rabbis of blessed memory have informed us, shekosha me'avodah zarah. It's worse than idolatry, and it's worse than shvichus damim, than bloodshed, v'gilui arayis, and immorality. Sheina chamuris mikola averis. Although these are more serious than all the sins, avodah zarah, gilui arayis, and shvichus damim, but in Yishalmi Peah it says that this is kosher mikulan. V'amru Rabbi Seinu Zichron Livracha, and our rabbis of blessed memory have informed us, Kol ha'mesaper lashon hara, whoever speaks lashon hara, kaifer beikar, denies in the essence of Hashem. K'moshe kasev, asher amru l'shaynenu nagber, they said we will prevail with our tongues. Sufasenu itanu, we have our mouths. Mi adain lanu, who is a boss over us? So they're saying they're kafar beikar, they don't have a boss, they don't have a Rabbeinu Shalom. Rechilas, tail-bearing, hayrik shloisha. He kills 3 people. The one that says it, the one he tells it to, and the one that he's talking about. V'shakul k'shvichas damim, it's like bloodshed. Ve'enoi nichnas beganein. Rachman al-Tzon, he doesn't enter into paradise. K'maisha amar ha'kasev, Hashem mi yogur ba'alecha, who's going to dwell in your tent in the next world? Loi ragal al-l'shayn, not somebody who has tail-bearing on his lip. V'nei doyer gadomi, avir harayim. He was the most mightiest of the shepherds of Hashem. He was the most mightiest of the Talmidei Chacham. Rosh HaSanhedrin, the chief of Sanhedrin. But Mipnei Rechilas, because of his tail-bearing, Nitrid min Olam Haba, he lost the next world. V'nichras b'chatzi yamav, he died in half of his days. V'garam harigas Noiver HaKahanim, he caused the killing of Noiver HaKahanim. Umisa Shaul ubanav v'bnei Beisai, and the death of Shaul and his children and his household. And finally, the Rambam says we talked about davening on Rosh Hashanah. Now let's talk about davening on Yom Kippur. B'yom HaKippurim, mispalel b'chol tefillah mechamesh tefillas sheva brachas. On Yom Kippur we daven 5 tefillas, Shachas, Mincha, Mahar, Musaf, and Nila. And each one has 7 brachas, Shalosh Rishonos, the first 3, of every day, v'shalosh achronos, the last 3, v'emtzoyis, and the middle bracha me'ein hayom, that speaks about Yom Kippur, v'chaysim b'chol achas mehem, and he finishes melech al kol haaretz, king over the whole world, mekadosh Yisrael v'yom HaKippurim. Now, if it falls out on Shabbos, v'emchol liyos b'Shabbos, then he adds Shabbos, chaysim b'chol tefillah mehem, melech al kol haaretz, mekadosh HaShabbos v'Yisrael v'yom HaKippurim. Our chasim is longer than this. Now, b'amid v'amamurim, when Yom Kippur, it's the Yom Kippur of a regular year. not of Yovel. B'yom tzom shel kol shana v'shana, the Yom Kippur of a regular year. Aval b'yom tzom shel shnas haYovel, but in Yom Kippur of Yovel we say Malchia, Zichronis, and Shofes. Mispal Tfilas HaMusafim, Teisha brachos, 9 brachos, K'moshe Mispal b'Musaf Rosh Hashanah. Ve'hein oisen ha-brachos atzman, that's Malchia, Zichronis, and Shofes, like Pachas, Yoser, not less and not more, but we don't do that nowadays. It's only when the Yovel is noig, when we have a Beis HaMikdash. Ve'hein Mispal oisan, ela b'zman she'Yovel noig. Now, b'chol tefillah me'atfilas, by every prayer, Peiseach kodim levracha, before we start Shemona Esrei, we say first, before kodim levracha Rishayna, Hashem tzvasai tiftach, Hashem open my lips, ufi yagid tilasecha, my mouth will relate your praise. Ukishu chayim esayif atfilah, when he finishes, Aymi yil ratzon imrei fi, may it be favorable the words of my mouth, v'hegyon libi lefanecha, and the thoughts of my heart before you, Hashem Tsuri v'Gayali, Hashem my rock and my redemption, and then he takes the 3 steps back. Okay, that was 1 hour and 6 minutes. We want to thank you for joining us for this huge Chok, and have a wonderful evening.